My dear friends, let me begin with a simple truth: fear doesn't stop death, it stops life. We all want to live freely, laugh openly, and love deeply, but what's holding us back? It's not our past, it's not our failures, it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough. And the tragedy is, while fear doesn't prevent bad things from happening, it prevents beautiful things from happening. Fear doesn't stop death, it stops life. These words carry a depth that most of us overlook in our daily rush. Every morning we wake up with plans, dreams, and hopes. But somewhere in between our coffee, our phone notifications, and the noise of the world, fear creeps in quietly. It doesn't always come shouting, sometimes it whispers. It whispers, what if you fail? What if they laugh at you? What if you're not enough? And in those quiet whispers, we lose our power. We don't even realize how many dreams die before they're ever born. Not because they were impossible, but because fear made us believe they were. Think about it. How many times have you stopped yourself from speaking up in a meeting because you were afraid of being judged? How many times did you stop yourself from sharing an idea because you thought people might laugh? How many times did you stop yourself from taking a chance on love, a new career, a new city, a new beginning, simply because of fear? Every time you say, I can't, out of fear, you kill a small part of your own potential. You don't live fully. You survive. I once met a young woman who dreamed of becoming a singer. She had a beautiful voice, one that could move people to tears, but she never sang in public. When I asked her why, she said, what if people don't like my voice? What if they criticize me? I looked at her and said, my dear, even the nightingale sings without asking who's listening. Fear had chained her, not the world. You see, fear doesn't always scream, stop. Sometimes it quietly convinces you that you're safer standing still. But standing still is where dreams go to die. When you let fear guide your choices, you begin to live half a life. You might be alive, but you're not truly living. Imagine a bird that has wings but refuses to fly because it's afraid of falling. What's the point of having wings then? Fear takes the very essence of who we are, bold, curious, creative beings, and turns us into shadows of ourselves. It doesn't take away our heartbeat, but it takes away our purpose. So many of us spend our lives preparing for the worst case scenario. We imagine failure before we even begin. We tell ourselves, what if I lose everything? But my friends, have you ever thought, what if I gain everything? Fear always focuses on what could go wrong, while faith focuses on what could go right. And the truth is, most of the things you fear never even happen. You've suffered more in your imagination than you ever have in reality. Look at children. They don't fear falling when they learn to walk. They fall, they cry, and then they try again until they run. Somewhere along the way, as we grow up, we forget that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite it. We start playing safe, living small, staying comfortable, and call it being practical. But in reality, it's just fear dressed as logic. A man once told me, I've stayed in the same job for 10 years because I'm afraid of change. I asked him, are you happy? He smiled sadly and said, no, that's what fear does. It traps you in a life you don't love because it convinces you that uncertainty is more dangerous than unhappiness. But my friends, comfort zones are beautiful only until they become cages. You might feel safe there, but nothing grows inside them. Growth happens only when you step out, only when you face fear head on. I've seen people lose opportunities, relationships, and years of their lives, not because they didn't deserve better, but because fear told them they weren't ready. And here's the painful truth. Fear doesn't leave you when you wait for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. The moment you decide to act, that is perfection. So what if you fail? Everyone fails. The difference between the ones who succeed and the ones who stay stuck is simple. The successful ones didn't let fear win. They fell, learned, got up, and moved again. You'll never find a person who did something great in life and wasn't afraid at some point. Every great story begins with fear and ends with courage. Imagine if Thomas Edison had feared failure so much that he gave up after his first attempt at making a light bulb. Imagine if Gandhi had feared what people would think. Imagine if Malala had stayed silent because of fear. The world we live in today is built by people who felt fear, but didn't surrender to it. They walked through it, one trembling step at a time, and the truth is, the more you face fear, the weaker it becomes. The first time you step on a stage, your heart races. The second time, it still does, but a little less. By the 10th time, you feel alive, not afraid. Fear feeds on your hesitation, courage feeds on your action. The only way to silence fear is to move despite it. So, my friends, the next time fear tells you, don't, I want you to smile and say, watch me. When fear says, you can't, whisper back, I already did. Because life begins where fear ends. Every laugh, every love, every success, every discovery, they all exist beyond fear. One day when you look back, you won't remember the things you avoided because you were scared. You'll remember the moments you dared to try. You'll remember how alive you felt when you took a leap, even if you fell. Because falling while trying is always better than standing still in fear. So don't let fear be the reason you stop living. Let it be the reason you grow stronger. Because fear doesn't stop death, it stops life. And the most beautiful thing you can ever do is live so fully, so fearlessly, that when death finally comes, it finds nothing left to take. Because you've already lived every moment to the fullest. Fear has two meanings. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. This simple line holds the power to completely transform how we live. Every one of us faces moments when life feels uncertain, when our heart beats faster, and when our mind is full of what ifs. In those moments, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads you to run away, to hide, to avoid, to give up. The other leads you to rise, to grow, to overcome, to become stronger than you were before. The choice between the two defines not just the moment, but your entire destiny. When life throws challenges at us, the natural reaction is to run. It's built into human nature. You feel uncomfortable, and your mind says, escape. But running away never solves anything. It only postpones the lesson life is trying to teach you. The fear you avoid today will be the same fear waiting for you tomorrow, just stronger. The truth is, every challenge comes not to break you, but to shape you. Fear isn't your enemy, it's your opportunity to evolve. Think about the times when you were scared to start something new. Maybe your first day at a job, your first presentation, your first interview, or even the first time you spoke your heart out to someone. Your mind must have whispered, "What if I mess up? What if I fail?" That's the forget everything and run moment. Most people stop right there. They run back to comfort, to safety, to what feels familiar. But those who take a deep breath, who say, "I'll try anyway," they walk this face everything and risey path. And that one decision makes all the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Let me tell you a small story. There was a boy who loved cricket. Every day he watched others play but never joined. Why? Because he feared being laughed at. He thought he wasn't good enough. One day, a friend pushed him to play just one over. The boy hesitated but agreed. The first ball came, he missed. The second ball came, he hit it. And it went flying for a boundary. The smile on his face that day wasn't just about the run, it was about victory over fear. That's what happens when you face fear. You don't just win against the world, you win against yourself. Life is full of moments like that. Maybe it's not a cricket field for you. Maybe it's speaking up when everyone stays silent. Maybe it's applying for that job you think you're not ready for. Maybe it's walking away from something toxic, even though you're scared to be alone. Every one of these moments asks you one question: will you run or will you rise? Running feels easy, rising feels hard. Running gives you comfort, rising gives you growth. Running gives you a short-term escape, rising gives you long-term freedom. When you choose to run, you stay small. When you choose to rise, you discover how big you can truly be. Fear is like a wall. It looks huge until you take one step closer. Then you realize it was never solid. It was made of air and your imagination. There was a woman I once met who wanted to start her own business. She had talent, vision, and ideas, but fear held her back. She said, "What if I fail? What if people mock me?" I asked her, "What if you succeed? What if people learn from you?" That small shift in thinking changed everything. She started small, baking cakes from her kitchen. Today, she runs a full bakery. The fear didn't disappear. She simply stopped running from it. She faced it. And when you face fear long enough, fear gets tired and walks away. Every great story begins with someone who faced fear instead of fleeing from it. Imagine if a seed was afraid of the dark. It would never grow into a tree. Imagine if a butterfly feared breaking its cocoon. It would never fly. Fear is not a signal to stop. It's a sign that something important is about to happen. The more fear you feel towards something, the more that thing is meant to grow you. Even in relationships, fear controls us. People fear rejection, so they don't express love. They fear vulnerability, so they build walls instead of bridges. But love only grows where courage exists. If you face the fear of rejection, you open yourself to connection. If you face the fear of being misunderstood, you open yourself to being truly known. The same rule applies in your career, your dreams, your purpose, everywhere. Facing everything doesn't mean you won't fall. You will. It means you'll rise again every time. It means you'll stop letting fear dictate the boundaries of your life. It means when fear says no, you'll whisper back, yes. It means you'll finally understand that growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in courage. And every act of courage you take, no matter how small, becomes a step toward the life you're meant to live. When you choose to face everything and rise, you start living differently. You speak even when your voice shakes. You try even when success isn't guaranteed. You forgive even when it hurts. You take chances even when you're uncertain. And that's when magic happens, when life begins to open doors that fear once kept shut. Fear will never truly disappear from your life. But once you start facing it, it loses its control over you. You start realizing that fear is nothing but an illusion created by the mind, a movie that plays in your head but has no power unless you press play. So press pause. Step forward anyway. The moment you decide to rise, life starts moving with you. Opportunities appear, confidence builds, energy flows. You'll begin to see that the things you once feared become the very things that strengthen you. The stage you feared to step on becomes your spotlight. The risk you were afraid to take becomes your success story. The what if that scared you becomes the thank God I tried. So whenever fear comes again, and it will, remember this, you have two choices. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. One choice keeps you where you are. The other takes you where you're meant to be. Fear is temporary, but regret is permanent. Rise, my friend. Rise above your doubt, your hesitation, your insecurity. Rise, and you'll see life has been waiting for you on the other side of fear all along. Fear is a teacher, not a master. These words may sound simple, but they hold a truth that can completely change how you live your life. Most people let fear control them like a strict master, deciding what they should or shouldn't do, where they should go, and who they should become. But if you shift your perspective, if you stop letting fear rule you and start letting it teach you, your whole life begins to transform. Because every fear you face carries a lesson that's meant to help you grow stronger, wiser, and more alive than ever before. Think about the way a teacher works. A good teacher doesn't exist to make you comfortable. They exist to challenge you, to test your limits, to bring out the best in you. Fear works the same way. It shows up in uncomfortable moments. When you're standing at the edge of a new opportunity, when you're about to take a risk, when you're about to speak your truth. And in that moment, fear says, don't do it. But if you listen closely, it's not saying that to stop you. It's saying that to wake you up. Because growth never happens in comfort. Growth happens in discomfort, the kind fear brings with it. Imagine a young child learning to ride a bicycle. The first few times, they're terrified. Their hands shake, their heart beats fast, and they fall again and again. But every fall teaches them balance. Every bruise teaches them courage. The fear didn't come to stop the child. It came to teach them how to move forward. One day, that same child rides freely, laughing in the wind, not because fear disappeared, but because they learned from it. That's exactly how life works for all of us. Fear is not there to imprison you, it's there to instruct you. It's there to show you what needs healing, what needs effort, what needs courage. When you treat fear as a teacher, you start asking, what is this moment trying to teach me? Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? And that small shift changes everything. Instead of feeling powerless, you feel guided. Instead of feeling stuck, you start moving. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you're afraid of public speaking. The moment you stand in front of people, your mind goes blank, your voice trembles, and you wish you could disappear. Most people would avoid such situations altogether. That's what it means to make fear your master. But the ones who see fear as a teacher will ask, what is this fear teaching me? Maybe it's teaching you to prepare better. Maybe it's teaching you to stop worrying about others' opinions. Maybe it's teaching you to own your voice. And every time you step on that stage, the fear lessens, not because it vanished, but because you learned. In relationships too, fear plays a teaching role. The fear of losing someone teaches you to value them more. The fear of being alone teaches you to love yourself. The fear of rejection teaches you the beauty of authenticity, that it's better to be real and rejected than fake and accepted. Every emotional fear you face is a lesson wrapped in pain. And when you unwrap it, you discover strength, wisdom, and peace you never knew existed. Many people think courage means the absence of fear. That's not true. Courage is when fear stands before you, looks you in the eyes, and you say, I'm listening, but I'm still moving forward. You see, fear only becomes your master when you start obeying it blindly. But when you pause and reflect, you start learning. You start realizing fear is not trying to harm you. It's trying to help you evolve. Think about all the fears you've overcome so far. The first time you left home, your first heartbreak, your first failure. Each of those fears felt impossible in the beginning, didn't they? But now, when you look back, those very moments became your teachers. They taught you resilience, patience, self-worth, and strength. The same fears that once made you cry are the reasons you've become wiser today. That's the power of treating fear as a teacher. Even the most successful people in the world have fears. The difference is they don't let fear drive their lives. They use it as feedback. When fear says, you can't do it, they ask, why not? When fear says, you're not ready, they respond, maybe it's time to grow. Fear becomes a compass pointing toward areas that need courage. It becomes a mirror reflecting what's holding you back inside. There's a saying, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. It means the very thing that scares you the most is often the thing that will change your life. If you fear starting your own business, that's where your independence lies. If you fear telling the truth, that's where your freedom lies. If you fear being alone, that's where your peace lies. The treasure is hidden inside the lesson, and fear is the gatekeeper that makes sure only the brave can enter. I once met a man who wanted to quit his job and follow his passion for art. But fear kept whispering, what if you fail? What will people say? For years, he obeyed that voice like a servant obeys his master. One day, he finally decided to face it. He began painting after work, slowly, quietly, without telling anyone. Within a year, his art started selling online. He looked at me and said, the fear was never stopping me. It was testing if I was serious. That's what happens when you stop bowing to fear and start learning from it. It stops being your master and becomes your mentor. So the next time fear shows up, when you feel nervous unsure, or uncomfortable, don't run from it. Sit with it. Listen to it. Ask, what are you trying to teach me? Because fear has something valuable to say. It might be teaching you to trust more, to prepare more, to believe more. And when you start learning from it, fear transforms from a wall into a doorway. Remember, this fear loses power the moment you understand it. It's like a teacher giving you a tough exam, not to fail you, but to make sure you're ready for the next level. So stop running from fear, learn from it, respect it, grow with it. Because fear is not here to command your life, it's here to guide it. The moment you see it that way, you stop living under its shadow and start walking in its light. And that's when real freedom begins. Trust your wings, not the branch. This simple line carries a world of wisdom within it. Imagine a small bird sitting peacefully on a branch. It sings freely, dances with the wind, and looks unbothered by the height or the movement beneath it. The bird knows something powerful. Even if the branch breaks, it can still fly. That's what trust truly means. It's not about believing that life will always be stable. It's about believing that you will always have the strength to handle it, no matter what happens. The branch represents the things we depend on: our jobs, relationships, money, or comfort zones. But our wings represent something far greater: our faith, resilience, skills, and inner strength. Most people spend their lives trusting the branch. They put their peace in things outside themselves. If I have this job, I'll be happy. If this person loves me, I'll feel complete. If everything stays the same, I'll be safe. But what happens when the job ends, the person leaves, or life changes? The branch shakes, and suddenly, they fall into fear and panic. That's because they never trusted their wings. They only trusted the branch that could break at any moment. The truth is, life will always shake the branches we sit on. Change is not an accident, it's a promise. And the only way to stay calm through life's storms is to trust your wings, to believe in your ability to rise again. No matter how hard you fall, let's look at our own lives. Think about how many times something didn't go as planned. Maybe you lost a job you thought was permanent. Maybe someone you loved walked away. Maybe a plan you worked on for years suddenly collapsed. At that moment, you felt as if the branch broke. But here's what's beautiful. You're still here. You didn't just survive, you learned, you adapted, you grew. That's your wings at work. Life didn't end because the branch snapped. It began when you realized you could fly. I once met a man who lost his business overnight. He was devastated, broken, and terrified. For years, he had believed that his identity was his company. Without it, he felt like nothing. But slowly, as time passed, he began discovering new talents, new passions, and new ways of rebuilding his life. He told me one day, when everything I trusted collapsed, I finally realized my strength wasn't in my business. It was in me. That's what trusting your wings does. It turns your biggest breakdowns into your biggest breakthroughs. Trusting your wings doesn't mean life will be easy. It means you'll stop living in fear of the branch breaking. It means you'll stop begging life to stay still. It means you'll start flowing with change instead of fighting it. Because life will shake, the wind will blow, the branch will sometimes snap. But if your trust lies in your wings, You'll smile through the storm. You'll say, even if this breaks, I'll still rise. I'll still create. I'll still soar. Think of a mother bird. Every day, she feeds her babies, keeps them warm, and protects them. But one day, she pushes them out of the nest. It looks cruel, doesn't it? But she knows that they will never discover their wings unless they're forced to use them. Sometimes life does the same to us. It pushes us out of our comfort zones, out of the nests we've built, out of the jobs or relationships that felt safe. At that moment, we panic and think life is unfair. But maybe, just maybe, life is teaching us how to fly. Every setback, every failure, every heartbreak is a test of trust. It's as if life is asking, do you trust the branch or your wings? And every time you choose your wings, you become stronger. You stop depending on things outside of your control. You stop measuring your worth by titles, possessions, or approval. You start realizing that peace doesn't come from what you hold, it comes from what you believe. A friend once told me about the time she moved to a new city with no job, no friends, and no guarantee of success. She said the fear was paralyzing at first. But with every small victory, every step forward, her confidence grew. I used to be afraid of losing things, she said. Now I know I can rebuild from nothing. That's the kind of power you get when you trust your wings. You stop fearing loss because you know you can always rise again. We often pray for stability, but what we really need is strength. Because no matter how tightly you hold on, the world will shift, people will change, and circumstances will move. The branch will always be temporary, but your wings, your spirit, your courage, your determination, those are eternal. That's what carries you through the storms. That's what helps you find light in the darkest moments. Trusting your wings also means believing that everything that happens, even the painful parts, has a purpose. When something breaks in your life, it's not the end, it's redirection. It's life's way of saying, you're meant to fly higher. Sometimes the branch breaks only to remind you that you were never meant to live sitting still. You were meant to soar, to explore, to grow beyond what you thought was possible. There's a deep peace that comes when you finally trust your wings. You stop being afraid of endings because you know every ending hides a beginning. You stop being afraid of falling because you know falling is just another way to learn to rise. You stop living in fear because you realize you've survived every broken branch before, and you always will. So, the next time life shakes, don't hold on tighter to the branch. Spread your wings. Trust the strength within you. Trust your ability to rebuild, to heal, to fly. Because real confidence doesn't come from knowing the branch will never break. It comes from knowing that even if it does, you will still soar. Fear has a strange way of convincing us that it's protecting us when, in reality, it's holding us back. Every time we take a step towards something meaningful, fear whispers, what if you fail? What if people laugh at you? What if you lose everything? And slowly we stop moving forward. We start playing it safe. We choose comfort over courage, stability over growth, and silence over expression. But here's the truth. The life you're meant to live, the dreams you're meant to chase, the person you're meant to become, all of it lies on the other side of fear. Fear is not there to stop you. It's there to show you where your next level begins. Let's think about a simple example. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a swimming pool. You've never swum before, and you're scared of drowning. You watch others dive in and glide smoothly through the water, laughing, playing, enjoying the moment. Deep down, you want to join them, but fear freezes you. It tells you, stay on the edge, it's safe here. So you wait, you watch, you stay dry, comfortable, but also unfulfilled, until one day someone says, you'll never learn to swim by standing on the edge. That's the moment of truth. You realize that to overcome fear, you must face it, not by thinking about it, but by jumping in. The first dive might scare you, but once you take it, you realize the water isn't as terrifying as your mind made it seem. You start floating, then swimming, then smiling. The fear that once paralyzed you becomes the strength that empowers you. That's how fear works in every area of life. It keeps you standing at the edge of possibilities, convincing you that safety is better than growth. But life doesn't reward safety, it rewards courage. Think of all the opportunities you might have missed because of fear. The job you didn't apply for, the person you didn't talk to, the dream you didn't chase. And then realize that every great thing you've ever achieved happened because you decided to move despite fear, not without it. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward even when fear screams, don't. I once met a young man who wanted to become a motivational speaker. But he was terrified of public speaking. The mere thought of standing on stage made his hands shake and his voice tremble. For years, he avoided opportunities to speak because he thought fear was a sign he wasn't ready. But one day, he heard something that changed his life. Your fear doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you care about doing it well. That struck him deeply. The next time he was invited to speak, he accepted. He was nervous, his voice quivered, but he did it. And you know what happened? The audience loved him. He told me later, the fear never disappeared, but I learned to walk with it instead of running from it. That's the secret. Don't wait for fear to go away. It won't. Fear is a companion that shows up whenever you step outside your comfort zone. But instead of letting it drive, let it ride in the back seat. You're the one holding the wheel. When you stop running from fear, it loses its power over you. You start realizing that fear doesn't define your limits. It defines your starting point. Fear also loves to disguise itself as logic. It says things like, be realistic, maybe later, or it's not the right time. And while some caution is good, too much of it becomes a prison. Life is not meant to be lived cautiously, it's meant to be lived courageously. The truth is, there will never be a perfect time to start. There will always be risks, always be doubts, always be uncertainty. But every person who has achieved something great has done it while being scared. They didn't wait for fear to disappear. They acted in spite of it. Think about the first time you rode a bicycle. You were scared to fall, weren't you? Maybe you did fall a few times, but every fall taught you balance. Every scrape made you stronger. And eventually, you found your rhythm. That's how life works too. You might stumble, you might fail, but fear only wins when you stop trying. Failure doesn't break you, quitting does. There was a woman I met once who had a dream of opening her own bakery. She loved baking since childhood, but never had the courage to turn it into a business. She feared judgment. What if people don't like my cakes? What if I lose money? What if I fail? One day, she decided to take a leap of faith. She started small, selling from her home. The first few weeks were tough. Some days, she didn't sell anything, but she didn't give up. Today, she owns one of the most popular bakeries in her town. When I asked her what changed, she said, "The fear never went away. I just stopped letting it make decisions for me." You see, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's the quiet voice that says, "I'll try again tomorrow." It's the moment you choose to take a small step forward, even when fear says, "Turn back." The more you face fear, the smaller it becomes. What once felt impossible becomes manageable, then easy, then natural. Because growth always begins at the edge of discomfort. Fear will always visit you before every big breakthrough. It's like standing before a locked door, unsure of what's behind it. But the key is in your hand. All you have to do is turn it. Most people never open that door. They spend their lives wondering, what if? But a few, the courageous ones, turn the key, and on the other side they find freedom, peace, and the life they were always meant to live. The truth is, fear isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. It shows you what matters most. You don't fear what doesn't matter, you fear what you deeply desire. If you fear speaking, it means you care about your message. If you fear failing, it means you care about succeeding. So instead of running away from fear, thank it. Use it as fuel. Let it remind you that you're growing, that you're alive, that you're stepping into something bigger than before. So stop letting fear make your decisions. Stop letting it silence your voice, shrink your dreams, or steal your peace. Because life is too short to live on the edge of possibilities. Jump in. Take the leap. Say yes, even when your heart is pounding. Because fear is not a wall, it's a door. And the moment you walk through it, you'll realize something beautiful. You were never meant to live small. You were meant to fly.